Hey everybody, Codemaster X here. So I'm going to start a new series here on the valiant, the powerful Unreal Engine 5. Um, a lot of people seem to be a little scared of the interface of the Unreal Engine, so we're going to go through the interface, just kind of look at how things work, that sort of thing, and just kind of learn how the interface works and how to navigate it, and once you kind of get through the end of this video, I feel like you'll have a much better grasp on it. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of um, nervous about the new Unity pricing changes and a lot of the decisions that they've made recently, and so they're looking for viable alternatives. Unfortunately, I don't have enough experience in Godot to do a Godot course. I may have a buddy of mine kind of go through how Godot works. Um, but I don't know enough about Godot to kind of go through Godot. So, but I do have enough with Unreal Engine. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, so I have this prop hunt project that that's 5 point. That's fine. Let's go ahead and open that up in 5.3. That's not a big deal. I have two versions of the engine kind of installed on my computer because the new version of um, Unreal has just released, and so not all of the plugins that I use are moved over to that yet. So I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. The projects that aren't using plugins that aren't in 5.3, and I can use those. So it's actually really nice to be able to have multiple versions of the engine. So I'm assuming that you've already kind of gone through and downloaded the engine. To do so, it's fairly simple. You download the Epic's Game Store. There's an Unreal Engine tab here. You click Library, and then Engine Versions. You hit the plus icon, and then you choose what version of the engine you want. I suggest 5.2.1 until all of the plugins and everything are updated to work with 5.3 and everything is stable. So I would stick with 5.2.1 for now, if that's what if you're kind of looking for the most stable version. 5.2 is in my opinion the most stable version of the editor in the engine to date. So let's look at the interface. So when you first open up the Unreal Engine, you're kind of greeted with the main interface. Now everything is customizable, just like Unity. So you don't have to worry too much about, how am I going to get this thing working? That sort of thing. In my opinion, Unreal Engine is more usable than Unity, and I'll kind of show you how and why here in a couple of minutes. But let's go through the main thing. So the first thing you have is your details panel right here. This panel right up here is the details panel. So anytime you click on anything, that's like the inspector panel in Unity. If you've used that, it just gives you all of the properties of whatever you've clicked on. Let's go ahead and pop open a map. So let's do the gameplay level. Just kind of now I have it on cinematic, which is pretty high. I'm gonna bump this down to epic. Cinematic is incredibly high, especially when I'm trying to record a video. So this is the 3D viewport. This is what they call the 3D viewport. It's pretty easy to navigate. You right click and move your mouse to kind of move around. If you hit W, A, S, and D as you're moving around, you can see that it works. It seems to be in my preview that it's kind of laggy. It's not laggy on my screen at all. So I'm not sure kind of why that's lagging out a bit. And then the properties panel, if we click on something, or the details panel, is here. So here's all of the properties for this item. You have the ability to actually kind of just look at certain sections. So the general is basically transform your static mesh, your materials. The actor is basically any actor things that this can do. So whether or not you want it to, you know, be converted into a different type, whether or not it can be damaged, its lifespan, that sort of stuff. So you can kind of like pare down everything. The other thing is there is a property selection matrix. This is essentially another way of looking at this. And the nice thing is that you can actually select multiple walls. So if we wanted another wall in here, then we would be able to kind of add a wall in here. You could pin properties, stuff like that. So this property matrix is basically for editing multiple things in your scene at a time. So for instance, if I select all of these and then hit property matrix, you can see now it's selected kind of all of these. And now I can go through and edit properties that are kind of in common between all of my selected actors. So really neat there. You can also toggle your favorites, so you can actually put properties up at the very top. Selecting in here, show only modified. So if you have an item and you're not quite sure who you know, like what changed on that item from the default, only keyable basically is only is properties that can be animated, and then these only animated properties are properties that are currently animated. All advanced details, show hidden properties while playing. All of this stuff, you know, very very similar to Unity. This is where things are a little bit different than Unity. So if you have components that are like parented to another component, they show up here, down here, rather than like kind of like as a like little hierarchy, like they do in Unity. Took me a little while to figure that out at first, but you can go through and you know, be able to look at that. So static mesh, and then so if you're not finding what you want here, you can click here, and that'll generally give it to you. If this doesn't have what you want, sometimes there are some things that you have to click down into to get into different things that have different properties that you're looking for. Yeah, so from there we have the select objects. So this just selects objects, right? This allows you to move them around, just like Unity. You have the different axes that you can move around. So you can move up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, or into planes, right? That sort of stuff. So very helpful. And then the rotation works a little differently. You kind of have these planes here, and then everything kind of snaps, and you have different snapping values. So this is the rotation. You have different snapping values in your rotations, and then the same thing for the scales and the movements. And then scaling works very similar. There is a slightly weird thing with the scaling that I've noticed, where sometimes it's hard to select the middle so that you scale it on all axes, versus just these two axes at the bottom. I'm not sure why. That widget is a little wonky, so make sure that everything is highlighted in yellow if you're trying to do that. So this one cycles your gizmo between the world and local space. So you can see if we were to rotate this, and then we look at our gizmo, you can see that this one kind of like, you can see how it like snaps between the world space and the local space. So you're able to take it off like a rocket this way, or if you wanted to just have it move straight up, you can move it straight up. That is basically how you handle that. And then this controls how they snap to surfaces. I think, yeah. So when you drag this, you can see that you can get it to kind of like physically connect to surfaces in different ways, right? That is fairly neat. And then this is the speed of your camera. So if you're moving, your camera always moves at a constant speed, unlike Unity where you speed up the longer you hold it. The way that you speed up while you're moving in the Unreal Engine is by scrolling your mouse wheel up or down. And you'll notice in the top right, as I scroll, that you can see I'm moving up faster and slower, right? And then you can also edit that from here as well. Let's see. So the other thing is your hierarchy window. And your hierarchy window here is pretty interesting. The only way of doing hierarchies in here is with folders. And then you can display objects of only certain types, so you can select really as many as you want. And then you have like a number of different things on here. Unloaded actors are for level streaming. So if you're in a certain part of the level, that other areas will be unloaded that are not in your view that you can see for optimization purposes. And you could choose what loads through the world partition stuff. This map is not world partition, so that doesn't show. We'll get into that later. The other thing that you can do is over here you have whether or not your viewport is real time. So you can actually click this off. And now my world is statically rendered. It's rendered one time and is not rendered after that. And it only renders if I move, right? So if I make a change to the world, it's re-rendered and then is not rendered after that. Then you can show your frames per second. That tells you how fast the scene is running. You can show your stats, which is kind of this milliseconds over here. You can also stat unit when you're in the game, and they'll give you like a bigger graph of things that tell you kind of and then these are stats. You can see how long collisions are taking, all that kind of stuff. You can fix your field of view. You can see what the game view would look like, so that basically gets rid of any widgets, that sort of stuff. Immersive mode basically does this. And then it's F11 to get back out of that. While camera shakes, basically, if you go into an area that would normally shake your camera, then it will shake the editor camera as well. You can set bookmarks, which are really cool. And so if I set a bookmark here, and then I move over here, and I click here, and I say I want to go to bookmark 0, then it will jump back to where I was. So this allows you to kind of jump to different areas in your scene. You can create different kind of cameras. You can create a screenshot. So if I hit a screenshot here and I hit capture, then this will create a screenshot of my current scene. And is that going to open up in Krita? Why is that opening in Krita? That's very strange. Anyway, so it just takes a screenshot of your current, whatever you're doing currently. Different layouts. Those are here. So if you click here, you have your different layouts. So you can see top right. These are unshaded. I'll show you how to shade those here in a second. You can restore by clicking here. If you click here, then it will restore this one. So you want to make sure that you're restoring the one that you want. This is the perspective view. So if you click on that, it gives you the ability to go top, bottom. My only thing is that I hate that it defaults to the wireframe mode. This is kind of frustrating for me, but it is super simple. You go to wireframe and you click lit, and now you're lit. It doesn't render backgrounds though in these views, and as you can see, certain distances away, the shading becomes a bit strange. You see, there's kind of no real shading here at all. There's no real like shadows or anything. You see, nothing's actually casting shadows. And then when we go into perspective, you can see that it actually does cast the shadows. So of course you have all of that in here as well. You can see the reflections, only what is being lit, what is player collidable, that sort of stuff. Just a ton of different visualizations that help you figure out what you're doing in your scene. You can also set your level of details. You can lock them for the entire scene, so you can see everything. You can lock it and see. It looks like they didn't really have any LODs for these. Unreal Engine will auto generate them if you tell it to, so that is something that it will do. And then these are showing things, so you can see collision, you can see the grid, navigation panes, which this doesn't have any baked, so you're not going to see anything. But yeah, you can see pretty much anything. This just kind of allows you to show the view. Jumping up above that, this is your main taskbar. You can save this changes between the different modes. So if you want to work with your landscape, you have the landscape mode, foliage mode. You can mesh paint. Fracturing is for breaking objects. It's pretty neat. So you're able to click on an object. And then you can generate a fracture kind of wherever you want. So let's generate it like a uniform one. And then you hit new, geometry collection. And then once that's done, it's basically generating a new thing. And then fracture. And so now we actually have this wall which has which is fracturable. So now if we wanted to change between, so if you shoot it, right, you can break the wall. That stuff is pretty neat. This wall is using the geometry collection now. You can Control Z that if you want to get it back to what it was. Next thing that we're going to look at is this, which is our create content. You can either import content to your current location, which is in your content drawer, which is at the bottom. We'll look at that here in a minute. Go into the Unreal Marketplace, or we can create content browsers. Now we can click Focus Content Browser. That brings up our content browser at the bottom. The other way of bringing up the content drawer is Control Space. That will also bring up the content drawer. And so when I said that I believe that things are a bit more usable than Unity, is you can actually create a whole nother content drawer. So this would be like your project view in Unity, where like all of your stuff lives. And so you can actually like go through here, and you can click and drag and move things to different areas without having to do all kinds of weird stuff and have it in like two pane mode and all of that kind of stuff. And then these are going through and just giving you your actors. The other really nice thing about this over Unity is if you're looking for something specific, you can just type it in. You want to make sure that you're not in one of these. Right? So if I hit post, it gives me basically everything in Unreal Engine is searchable that way. So even in here, if I wanted to like level, right, it's all searchable. So this is the blueprint stuff. So I can create a new blueprint from here. I can convert my current selection to a new blueprint class. Blueprints are kind of like prefabs in Unity, but they are far more powerful, and we'll get into that in the blueprint section. I don't want to get too deep into that. Your level itself is also allowed to have blueprints on it, so you can open that up, and I'll just kind of just show you the blueprint editor here for a moment. This is the blueprint editor for the level itself, and you can see that it opened up in a new window. You can dock this panel here so that you're kind of like switching between the two. You can put it down below. It can pretty much go wherever you want it to. This one is being a little crazy on me, but yeah, so that's the blueprint section for that. You can look at your game modes, which are essentially like if you're making a first-person shooter and you have capture the flag, domination, extermination, that sort of thing. You can have different game modes that you can actually load in and change the game modes. This is level sequencing. This is like cutscenes, like cinematic stuff. We'll get into that later. This is your play mode stuff. So what we call so essentially one of the things that you were able to do in Unity is click play, and then and then it would just drop you into the game, right? We call this Pi, or play in editor.
Pew.
And so you can do pretty much anything that you can do with that. So my mouse and keyboard are captured in this view, right? So how do I get out of this? Well, you can hit escape. We'll take it out. The other way is if you want to stay in game but you want to edit stuff on the outside, you can hit F8. That will essentially unpossess your character. And we'll get into how pawns work, but essentially anything can be possessable in Unreal Engine. And when I say that, that means that it basically you're injecting the mouse and keyboard input into that object, and then that object handles how the mouse and keyboard works. So you can see that my character is still spawned, and I'm able to go around and I can click on things. I can even click on my character, that sort of stuff. If you click on something that has a camera inside of it, such as my character has this camera, then it will show a camera in right here in this. Well, you see it. It's right there. And then to get back, you can either hit F8 again, or you can click this button. And then you click
Pew pew,
and we're back in the game. The other thing that you can do is you can stop it by hitting escape, and then if you are paused, that's if you like have a breakpoint or something set in your code or in your blueprints, you can advance a single frame forward, so you can actually pause the game and advance the game by single frames. It's super helpful if you have one specific frame that's not working properly in an animation or something like that. You can see where and when things go crazy. You also have different types of things that you can do. You have mobile preview, and then you can also just open up a completely separate window, right? And then this one, unfortunately, you can't do like the F8 things with. Standalone game will kind of like lightly build your game and then like just run it. simulate. So if you have, let's say, these things here. So let's say that I have simulate physics on. Then I can simulate, and it will simulate physics and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure why that didn't drop. I think I don't have the right setting on for that. But the game will normally simulate that sort of thing. Oh, I see why it was doing that. All right, so let's look at this box. This box should hopefully work here. There you go. So you can see that the physics simulated. They had essentially they're using the mesh as the collision mesh for those. Not entirely certain why. You could probably get away with like a just a simple box collider with those. Not quite sure why they did that, but either way, there is a way to simulate those. So even if that didn't, even if that did that, even if you wanted to simulate that, you can. There are ways of doing that. There's also two ways of setting your start location. You notice every time I hit the play button, I go to the same location or into a similar location here. The other thing I can do is I can start my character from the current camera location. The game mode is overriding it. So the game mode can override certain things. It's overriding the spawn. But normally, if you don't have it in your game mode, your current camera location is wherever you're going. Number of players. This is really neat. It actually allows you to simulate multiplayer. And right now,
Pew pew.
Right now he has things set up weird. He, as in the person who created this template, has things set up weird. But normally you would be able to see two characters running around together. And then you have the different type of modes. So right now, it's standalone. Okay, so if I go to play as listen server and I click here, now you can see that the game is actually running now, and it'll actually simulate.
Disguise yourself as a prop and find a good hiding spot.
Right, so I can come over here.
Pew.
Right, and now I am this, and then I go to the hunter here.
Hunters are released.
And now I can hunt. So this allows me to basically test my multiplayer game right here in the editor without having to do a build, right? So you can
Bing.
see,
Match over.
So pretty neat stuff. You can also play as a client, which essentially spawns a headless server in the background. There's also a ton of advanced settings. This is the editor preferences. We'll get into this just here in a second. All right, so let's look at platforms. Platforms are essentially, this is where your games are going to be built to, where your games can actually exist. So whether they're Android, iOS, Linux, Windows, Mac, all that kind of stuff. You can see all of this stuff. It allows you to package it in different, you can like pack it, cook it. Cook it is basically preparing all of your assets for that platform. And then packaging it is it installs it and runs your game. And then this is the different types of configurations, whether or not it's development, whether or not your game is shipping, debug builds. So if somebody is running into an issue and they're able to consistently do it, but you can't, you can send them a debug build. And that will give you more details in the logs, that sort of stuff. So there's a ton of different things on here. Device managers, all that kind of stuff. These two are the plugins that I have, so ignore these. Last thing on this bar is the settings thing. This is basically just editor settings. You have the engine scalability, so whether or not you're high, medium, low, epic, cinematic, or basically run a little test and see, hey, what is your best settings for your computer? And then monitoring the editor performance gives you a lot of other stuff. This is the master audio. You can do actor snapping, so whether or not they snap together. So you have socket snapping, vertex snapping, and planar snapping. All really nice stuff. Hide viewport UI that hides this stuff at the top. And then previewing allows you to preview different things. All pretty self-explanatory, different rendering levels. So if you wanted to do like shader 5, shader 3, Vulkan on Android, iOS shading models, that sort of stuff. And then your current world settings is another window. This is the current level settings. This is your game mode, and then you can see what settings your selected game mode has kind of at a glance. And then we'll kind of get into this stuff later on. But just know that it's there, and that's where you set your game mode. Up here, these do all kinds of things. This is for creating new levels, opening assets, saving your level, importing things into your current level, creating new projects, zipping your project up, that sort of thing. Edit is for editing your currently selected objects. Windows basically just open up windows that aren't already available to you here. Tools is a number of different tools for doing things. You can create C++ classes. You can find code within blueprints. You can look at what your C++ header will look like. This is for your cache statistics, class viewers, stuff like that. So it's just kind of really helpful little stuff. The blueprint debugger is super helpful. The modules debugger is super helpful. The debug tools are also really helpful. They allow you to do all kinds of things. Testing your gamma, stuff like that. Generally 2.2 is the default gamma for a monitor. And then you can reload all the textures in the game, flush the font cache, display the texture aliases. So this is basically everything in the editor. So these are all of the loaded icons in the editor currently. Really cool stuff that you can do in those tool windows. Building is for not building your project, but like baking your lighting if you're not doing real-time lighting, grass maps, all that kind of stuff, building your texture streaming data, your light streaming data, all that kind of stuff. You can build your nanite meshes in here. Selecting is literally, you can select things in a myriad of different ways in Unreal Engine. You can select, unselect, you can invert, select all static meshes, you can focus your current selected object, you can select immediate children, all descendants. There's just there's a gaggle of stuff that you can do in here. Actor is essentially editing the current actor. It has other things that you can do in here. Replacing your actor, you can place an actor at your currently selected location. So like if I click on this guy here and I click actor, place actor, directional light, now the directional light is placed where I had clicked. So it's pretty nice. You can attach this actor to other things. You can also like play as this actor, which will do crazy things. Like you can actually like play like as if it was prop hunt, like this game is prop hunt, right? You can actually you can prop hunt in the editor to place your objects. It's pretty neat stuff. And then of course all of the help stuff. So this is the default editor. So let's look at the blueprint editor. I'm just gonna run through I'm just going to run through the interface. I'm not going to show you how blueprints work. That's for a later thing. So this is the blueprint interface. This is your blueprint canvas. These are the different components that are attached to your blueprints. As I said, they're like prefabs. This is like blueprint settings. So this is the different graphs that you have. So the event graph is the default graph. That's for things like if you right click, you can do like begin play, right? And then this event happens when you begin playing, all that kind of stuff, and that'll show up here. So if I do that again, like begin play, you'll see over here that it actually adds it here, and you can double click on them to jump to them. You can create functions. You can create macros, different variables, and event dispatchers. This is for like if you have you can create what are called actor components, and they will attach to your actors, and then if something happens inside of this component, you can actually have your actor listen for that event, and then it will dispatch that event into your actor. Super helpful. Everything opens up in tabs up here. The construction script, this basically happens as it's constructed. This almost always happens in the editor, not in game. Begin play is what happens in game. You have stuff up here. Compiling compiles the script. This will find it in your content drawer. This, if you have version control set up, it will show you the different versions of it. This is for finding things within the script. So if we wanted to find this door, right, we type in door, and it will show us everything in this blueprint associated with door. This hides nodes that are unrelated to the current node. Class settings, this is the type of blueprint. So the blueprint can actually like inherit from other blueprints. Think if you had a prefab that could like inherit from other prefabs. You can reparent it to pretty much anything that is blueprint parentable from here, as well as importing namespaces, interfaces, stuff like that. Class defaults, this is basically if the class has information, you can edit that default information here. It's super helpful because you can spawn default versions of this class and then change the data. And again, everything is editable from the details panel. Right? So super helpful stuff. This is also where your replication happens, which is networking related stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much this window. And I mean, everything in here is basically everything in here is basically your inspector panel, but as a full window. So like everybody gets a little overwhelmed because they're like, what are all these windows? It's like they're literally just your inspector panel from Unity, but as a full window. So you get far more editable capabilities. You can drag them over to the right. You can select multiple of them and be editing multiple of them at a single point in time. And it's all editable. Also, for those of you who used Unreal Engine 4 in the past, you can load the Unreal Engine 4 layout, which looks like this. This place actor thing goes from here to here. And then your content browser stays up full time versus just, popping up like that. I prefer the default layout because it's far like wider, cleaner, that sort of thing. This is your log. So anything that happens in the game that you're logging data from or to will show up in here. You can do commands. So these are different commands. You can do like r dot, and that gives you, this is all rendering stuff. It's a dot. This is all animation stuff. Stuff like that. Or if you want, you can use Python. Yep. And then this stuff down here, this is for showing data in certain ways. I don't remember what these do. This is your cache data. This is for building your code. So if you're using C++, you can build your code from here. This shows you how many things, it's all down here. So this shows you how many things are unsaved, and you can click on it to save them. And then the revision control right there is for if you have version control that you want to do. So it supports Subversion, Git, Plastic SCM, and Perforce. I personally use Git. It says beta, but it actually works pretty well. There are some things that act a little crazy, but I haven't really had any real problems with it. Yeah, so I mean, from here, I would just go into the individual things. Let's talk about the content drawer really fast. You can favorite folders. So if you have a folder you like that you're going into a lot, you can right click on it and to favorites, and it will show up here. This is the name of your project. Collections are the different type of collections that you have. This is basically like a breadcrumb. So you can click on it to jump into different parts of your breadcrumb. Content is always the base content of your path. You can look in the engine content and stuff like that from here. Save all, import, and then adds new content. So it's basically the same as right clicking in here, right? And again, this is editable. So if I wanted to do, right, it is searchable. You can search for content here. You can filter your items. Your filters will show up here. So if you've used filters in the past, they'll show up here. You can right click on them and remove them, and then it'll disappear. And then if you do filters again, right, then it gives you those filters. Or you can go into here and unselect them, and it will get rid of them. Dock in layout, it just docks it at the bottom like you saw before. Settings basically allows you to show and hide different things. And instead of doing tiles, you can do lists like this. You can do columns, which allows you to like have different data in here. Your filter display. So let's say we had two filters. You can have them display up here, or you can have them display over here, right? So I mean, really, either where you want them. There's an all folder, which is kind of useless in my opinion. You can show empty folders. If you don't want your favorites there, you can get rid of that. You can lock your current content browser. Change the thumbnail sizes. You can also control scroll to do that. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Everything else you can kind of play with and see what it does. If you have plugins, you want to show your plugin content. If you have engine stuff in the engine that you've added to the engine, you want to display that as well. If you have stuff that is inside of your plugins here, which this is your plugin one, so this shows you all of the plugins that you have available. You can see the ones that I have installed that I thought would benefit this game. And then I can find the content for those, because some of those have their own blueprints. Some of them have levels, stuff like that. So, or like maps that show off their details, stuff like that. So, yeah, you can find all that plugin stuff in here. There's generally two kinds. You have C++ classes and then content. So you see let's see, right here, Arc arc rich text content and arch rich text C++ classes. So usually the C++ is in the C++, and then your blueprint content shows up here. And then so this is an example. Shows you example widgets and stuff like that. Just basically how to use it. Yeah. So from there, that kind of gives you a good overview of how the editor itself actually works. I will be going through and showing you kind of each individual thing in more detail later. But as an overview, this is already 45 minutes long, so I just kind of wanted to run you guys through this, kind of give you an idea of how everything works and kind of where everything is at the very least. I hope this kind of demystifies the user interface for you guys. It's basically Unity with like added windows to it, which give you much more fine-tuned control. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.